did that every day, but that still was not optimal, right? And that's when the big game changer arrived. I actually chose one. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy FlyJV, and I am back with another video. Now in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 things that I wish I knew before joining flight school. So it's going to be 5 airline pilot tips for you guys. For those of you who don't know me, I am FlyJV, an Airbus A320 first officer. If you haven't done so already, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the post notifications so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Now without further ado, let's get to it. Number 1. Elect a day off on which you will go out with your friends and or catch up on sleep. When I started flight school initially, I handled the workload the way I usually do, meaning I would sit down, look in, tunnel vision, put in the hours of work, and then just hope for the best, right? However, after about 2 months of ground school, which is the initial part of flight school, I started feeling like my lack of sleep was catching up to me. So this was what I was usually doing. I would go to class from 9 to 5. At 5, I would come out of class, take about an hour to myself, go get some food, come back to my room and study until about 1 a.m., sometimes more actually. And I would do that every single day until the weekend arrived. And it was not sustainable. It was not healthy. I would have my lights on until crazy hours during the night, and people would come knock on my door or my window and like realize that I was still awake. And it became like this kind of running gag where people would like take their smoke breaks outside of my room because they knew like I would still be awake. It's pretty funny, but it's not healthy at all. So I first started with one tweak that I did that changed kind of everything, right? So I would finish class at 5, and I started like taking 1 hour nap every time I would finish class. So I would take a nap from between 5 to 6, and then at 6:15 I would go get some food, come back, and work until 1 a.m. I did that every day, but that still was not optimal, right? And that's when the big game changer arrived. I actually chose one complete day off on which I would not study at all. I would just sleep completely or go out with my friends, maybe go to the beach, go do something else different than studying, and actually just recharge completely. And the reason why I chose Friday is because Friday is the best day for a trade-off, meaning that it's not a full day that you just waste. It's a day where you actually have class, so you would finish at 5 p.m. and then you just take the rest of that day off. Saturday and Sunday would be dedicated to studying completely, and I could use these days as well to sleep in and wake up whenever I need to wake up, and then get to work straight when I felt rested enough. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. If you're going to be pulling all-nighters and if you're going to succeed in flight school, you need to not neglect your rest. You need to get your rest to be able to be efficient when you get into working. Number 2, you need to understand the importance of online question banks and the difference between each of these question banks. As far as EASA ATPL training programs are concerned, there are 2 main online question banks that you need to know about: avexam and Bristol Ground School. Going into flight school initially, I completely neglected the importance of online question banks. To be fair, I didn't even know what they really were. I didn't even know they existed at the very beginning of flight school. As I progressed through ground school, I heard a lot of people talking about it more and more, and that's where I started getting interested. But the way I did it, I prioritized my knowledge coming from the books, my notes I took from class, and the school bank. The school bank meaning the worksheets that were provided to us by the instructors. Now, there was an upside to me doing this. It gave me a very good understanding of the subject matter in general, and I had a good grasp of what I was learning. However, it was not enough to be able to pass the EASA exams with the highest marks, right? So what I would suggest that you do is prioritize everything that comes from the school itself, books, worksheets from the instructors, and the notes that you take from class. And when you're done with a chapter, you top off that knowledge with basically the online question banks. This will allow you to basically have everything that you need to know and have that external source when you're done with everything that comes from the book and school to actually just complement everything that you already know. So that's what I suggest that you do. That's what I did for the first phase of ground school because I neglected, like I said, the online question bank until the EASA exams. And when I had 2 weeks off for the EASA exams, that's when I hammered the bank. However, there are 2 banks, like I said. Which one is better is probably your question. Neither is really better, but they are different though. Avexam use the subject matter from the syllabus and make their own questions. And Bristol, on the other hand, use questions that are actually used in the real exams. So what I would suggest that you do, if possible, is do both, if you can. If you cannot, however, focus on Bristol Ground School Bank because it is better to have questions that are closer to the actual exam than to just practice your knowledge on fictional questions, if that makes sense. In the second phase of ground school, since I had that experience from the first phase of ground school where I neglected the importance of the question banks, I managed to actually focus on both, and I ended up having knowledge from notes, books, worksheets, and I managed to finish both online question banks without any problems. That made me go into the second phase of ground school even more confident than the first one. So in conclusion, both banks are complementary to each other, and if you use them wisely and manage to do both of them throughout ground school instead of just at the end like I did for phase 1 ground school, you will maximize the potential that you can get out of them. Number 3, find suitable training partners and use them wisely. I have the habit of studying alone, and when I got into flight school, it was no different at all. However, I found that when I started studying with other people, I became more efficient. Now, when I say studying with other people, study partners or study groups, I don't necessarily mean doing the same worksheet or the same assignments all together. I just mean being in the same room as other people who are working. And the reason for that is this: it increases the longevity of your study session, and it also just makes you more sharp and more focused. And the reason for that is just looking at other people work while you're doing work makes you want to keep doing it, because you're in an atmosphere with everybody else doing the same thing as you are. Also, when you take breaks, you can go on walks, you can go get some snacks together, you'll be cracking jokes and just having a good time. And that will just make the atmosphere even better for you to keep studying and keep wanting to come back for these study sessions, okay? And obviously as well, if you ever have any questions, you can ask for help from them, or they can ask for help from you, and you can help them and just thrive together in that environment. Now, on the other hand, it's also important to understand that you have to use these people wisely. And the reason for that is you can do it the wrong way. If you rely too heavily on other people when you do assignments or you do worksheets, you will actually be doing yourself and other people a disservice when tests arrive. Because it is important to struggle by yourself sometimes and just climb that mountain by yourself when it comes to learning new knowledge. Studying with partners and studying in a group is mostly efficient when it comes to consolidating an already established picture that you have, an already established understanding that you have. If you don't have that basic core understanding and you start doing worksheets and assignments with other people, they will be doing the heavy lifting for you on certain questions, and you'll be maybe on like answering a few of them, and you will have the illusion that you're understanding and that you're actually passing these things, but you're actually not. You're relying on other people to be able to do it for you. And when you go on exams, you will start seeing it, it won't be pretty. So temporize it, okay? Study with people from time to time, you know, but a lot of times you should be by yourself, learning and struggling on this new knowledge and understanding it. However, though, do not shy away from asking for help when you need it, because it's useless to spend 2 days on something that you can do in 2 hours just because you don't understand it. If you're stuck, get unstuck by using other people and ask them for advice. They will probably be glad to help, because it actually helps them as well to help you, and then you get back on track. Now, when it comes to online question banks, like we mentioned in the last point, number 2, you should do the whole bank by yourself before you start studying with other people. And what I mean by this is I'm talking about using the same computer to do the same exact test. If you're doing with your computer one test and the other person is doing with their computer one test and you're in the same room, there's no problem with that. However, if you start to do the same exam on the same computer and actually helping each other, I really don't recommend you do that unless you both have completed the online banks. And the reason for that is this: he will have done something, you will have done something, and then you will start using both of your knowledges to like complete and fill in the gaps for each other to complete exams, and that's not going to be an effective study method. The most effective way of doing things is having everything at least minimum a basic core understanding of what happens in that subject matter, and when that is done, you consolidate, practice, and repeat with other people, because you already have the understanding, and it would just be a matter of understanding this guy's perspective, and just piecing it all together to make it even better for a higher mark. Okay, there's something called the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, and it says that 80% of results is achieved by doing 20% of the work, and vice versa. So 20% of the last, for example, to get 80% on an exam, you would need to put 20% of work. And what I mean by that is like 20% of the general subject matter is what you will need to understand basically, like the basics, to be able to do everything else. And the last 20% to get that 100% for your mark will be 80% of the work, because you need to go into detail. That's when study partners come in. you're actually doing that detailed work with other people. You don't want to be doing the easy and basic understanding with other people, because that is the core, that's the basics that you need. That's the building blocks to the house that you're trying to build, which is getting the pass mark at the very, very minimum, right? So when you have these building blocks, then you can start working on the finish, you can start working on the polishing and everything else with other people to increase the potential grade that you can have. Number 4, backseat as many flights as you can with other students from your class or ahead of you. This right here is a cheat code. Now during flying phase, you will be assigned a flight instructor, and your schedule will be heavily dependent upon your instructor's availability and aircraft availability. Certain people in your class will be ahead of you and certain people will be behind you. It is important that you manage to sometimes squeeze in back seats with people that are ahead of you or somewhere around where you are, to be able to understand and just have better understanding of flying in general. Now, it becomes particularly important when you're introduced to new key concepts such as flying in navigation, holding, using nav aids, tracking to and from radials, holding, instrument flying, and just watching the way people work, the way they do phraseology with ATC, the way they perform checklists, memory items, emergency procedures. This will play a big role in the way that you digest information before you go into these flights yourself, because it's like seeing things for the second time when you'll be actually doing these flights, and so you'll be familiar with it already. That is a great thing that you can use to your own benefit, because you have that much free time during flying phase. Now there's 2 ways you can go about it. When you're assigned a flight training instructor, you are usually paired with somebody from your class who also has the same instructor. Also, there's other people, obviously, who have other instructors. You can either get paired with that person that you have the same instructor as, which will be the easiest way of doing it if you're getting along. That's what I used to do. I had a friend when I was flying the Diamond, the DA-42. We would backseat each other's flight consistently. I would do a flight, he'd be backseating me. The next flight he'd be doing his, I'd be backseating him, and same thing for the simulator as well. He'd be doing the same thing, I'd be doing the same thing with him, and it just made us so fast when it comes to our progression. It was insane. And the other option is, if you can, try to also squeeze in some backseats from people with other instructors, because that will give you another perspective and another understanding. However, avoid backseating people who are too far ahead of you, because that will become useless in a way, because you'll be skipping too many steps and you won't be able to follow. Unless you're doing it for fun or just for motivation, I don't suggest you do that. Number 5, last but definitely not least, do not, I repeat, do not absorb the negativity and bitterness of certain flight instructors. We are all human beings, and we all have things behind the scenes that happen that affect us and that people do not know about. No matter what is happening in our lives, it is never right to dump our negative feelings and emotions onto other people in our daily lives. However, you might be assigned a flight instructor who does not see things that way, and who might never be satisfied with anything that you do for no apparent reason. They will exaggerate everything that you do bad, and they will downplay everything that you do get right. If that happens to you, it is important that you deal with it in the right way, okay? You remain silent, you keep looking forward, you keep doing your flight, you do not acknowledge their displays of anger, and you keep treating them with respect, all the while doing what you need to do. Remain unaffected, because at the end of the day, ultimately, this moment in itself does not matter, and the feelings of the instructor that have nothing to do with you, by the way, do not matter. The more affected you are by these things and the more you show it, believe it or not, the more the instructor will continue doing them, because that's the reason people who have things that are happening behind the scenes and dump it onto you feel. They're doing it because they want a reaction out of you. Do not ever give anybody that satisfaction. Respect them, but never let yourself be manipulated by the feelings of others, because this has nothing to do with you. Like I said before, keep doing your thing. You're here for a goal. If you let the words, the bad feedback of any instructor, of course, if it is not relevant, if you take it to heart, you will feel like you don't deserve to be a pilot. You will feel like you're wasting your time, but that is not true, because obviously you've passed the selection exam to be in that school. You've completed ground school phase 1 if you're flying right now. So never let yourself be sidetracked by these meaningless things. They might be acting like this for various reasons, okay? Maybe they don't like the way the flight school treats them. Maybe they've applied to an airline job and they did not get the response they anticipated to have. Maybe they don't get paid enough and they're bitter about it. Maybe something bad is happening to them at home. They might have problems. We don't know about it. Maybe they feel insecure around you, okay? Maybe they just don't like you. Who knows? You are not a therapist. You are a student pilot. You want to become an airline pilot in the future. Who cares? Take it, move on, okay? You don't spend time and you don't dwell on things that do not matter, all right? That is the key right there. The unfair behavior of a bitter instructor is none of your concern. You do your thing that you came to do and you move on, okay? Somebody doesn't like you, you were there to succeed, you're gonna succeed anyway. They were there to hate, they're gonna hate anyway, okay? Roses are red, violets are blue. It's just the way life goes. Take it, move on. This happens in flight school, but it also happens in life. So it's important that you're just resilient in this way anyway. It has nothing to do with academics. It has to do with everything you will do in life. People will act like this. It's none of your concern. You cannot be dwelling. A key word as an airline pilot is resilience. And this is something you will learn when you join an airline and you do crew resource management training. Okay? Resilience is very important as a pilot. You cannot be somebody who dwells on things, because you have to actually be active and taking action all of the time. Okay, you can't be dwelling on past mistakes. You have to be actively working to fix them with your crew. You have to be resilient, resistant. You can't let things like this get under your skin. So it's temporary, okay? You get through it. Now, the moment it turns into insults and disrespect towards you, that's when you need to take action, okay? You will need to head to the head of training or the chief flying instructor and request an actual change of instructor and let them know the behavior that is happening that is disrespectful towards you, because at the end of the day, even though you're a student, you're still a client as well who's paying money to be there. And if you're doing everything like you need to be doing, then no one has any right to disrespect and insult you. Point blank, period. Okay? So you deal with it that way and you move on. Respect the person until they stop respecting you. If they stop respecting you, respect goes both ways. You deal with it appropriately, you speak to the appropriate people, and you get on to another flight instructor so you can continue in a smooth fashion. Simple. Now, on the flip side, it's important that you don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Do not be the type of person to blame instructors as soon as they give you any negative feedback. If you're doing something wrong, you have to work on it, you have to fix it. If you're doing everything right and you're studying and you see that from one particular instructor, okay, fair enough. That's when my advice applies. However, if you're the type of guy who has 4 instructors that are all giving you negative feedback and one that is giving you good feedback, then probably the problem is you, and that's when you need to work on yourself. Be self-aware, okay? However, I'm talking about the case where it's the opposite. Most of the flight instructors you have are good with you. They like the way that you perform. You prepare your flights in time. You study everything that you do in flight. You revise, bang, you do everything you need to do. They like you, and then all of a sudden one is different from the others drastically. That's when you know there's a problem. That's when you know you might be dealing with one of these bitter, toxic people, okay? But you got to be self-aware to not be on the other side where you don't have any self-awareness and you just can't take any constructive criticism. That is very dangerous, and that's not something that you should not have as a pilot. You need to be self-aware, okay? You need to have adequate emotional intelligence to know where you stand in the things that you do and if what you do is congruent with the way people are treating you. My point is, sometimes you will encounter these things. You have no control over it. But what you can control, however, is your emotions and the way you deal with it. So make sure you deal with it adequately and you always keep moving forward to achieve your goals. These people are temporary. Your goal is forever. Remember this. Having negative thoughts is human, but speaking them into existence, that is a choice. It reveals your true character at the end of the day. Be limitless. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching my video. I hope it was valuable to you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. A Day in the Life as an Airline Pilot 6 is out and available on my channel. It took me a very long time to make, and I think you will enjoy it. I think it's one of the best that I've ever made as well, actually, so make sure to share the love. And guys, I'll see you all in the next one. Make sure to follow the Discord, follow me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I post a bit more on there. Links in the description down below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. FlyJV forever.